This is the Strandberg Boden Standard 6 Tremolo in flame blue, as you can see right here. In this video, I'm going to do an unscripted review, just telling you the basic specs and features of the guitar, telling you my impressions of the guitar, things I thought going into it, and kind of approaching it from the perspective of somebody who's never played a headless or never played a multi-scale guitar, but also just giving you my impressions having played guitar for a very long time at this point. So you may have seen I did an unboxing and a little test of the video to get my first impressions, but now I've had this for, I want to say, around 3 months. So I've had a lot of time to play it every day, really see exactly how I feel about it, because there is a lot, as you may know, about this guitar that's unique compared to most other guitars on the market. Maybe to this brand, I guess, is unique compared to many other guitars on the market. But let's start off with the specs. Obviously, this is a headless multi-scale guitar. So in terms of the scale length, you're looking at, I believe, a 25.5-inch scale length on the low E string, which is the same as you'll find on most guitars. Fender Strats, you know, Ibanez RGs. It's the typical, I guess, standard scale length. And then it travels down to a 25-inch scale length on the high E string, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is what is used on a lot of Paul Reed Smith guitars. So you're basically getting a different scale length for each string as you proceed, but the difference is only a 1/2 inch, and as you can see, that the fanning of the frets is not very significant. It's not very severe. I'll get back to my actual impressions on that, but I just wanted to go through the specs so far. So yeah, you have Strat to PRS scale length basically. Stainless steel frets, they're jumbo, but that doesn't really tell you the exact size of the frets because everybody just says jumbo or medium or whatever. Everybody uses their own terms, so you don't really know. 24 of them. You have these, I forget if they're Luminlay or exactly what the brand is, but they're the glow-in-the-dark dots on both the side and on the fretboard. They're sort of offset, and then when you get past the 12th fret, it switches to the treble side, which is pretty cool. It starts on the bass side. I haven't like shined a flashlight on the dots to see how well they glow, but I would think you would have to do that because it's not like when I turn off my lights in my room, they're suddenly glowing. Like, I think you'd probably have to shine a light on them. Anyway, we have a roasted maple neck and fretboard, 2 pieces. I think that's always the case if you have like an overhang, if it's like 24 frets or some kind of extension, that the fretboard and neck are 2 separate pieces, roasted maple. Then moving over to it's the endurneck profile, but that's a whole other thing to talk about. Then moving over to the body. It's a basswood body. Basswood. It's basswood. People say basswood so much, I'm starting to say it. It's basswood! With a flame maple, or with a maple top and a flame maple veneer. What I'm pretty sure from what I've read is that the guitar does actually have a full, like, actual top, because sometimes they just put like a figured veneer for the appearance, and then you just have the regular body wood, so the top wood is not actually influencing the tone. But I believe on this guitar, it's actually just a standard maple top over the basswood, and then they just put a flamed veneer on top of it, so you get the appearance of the flame without having to use the whole thickness in the flamed maple, which I think is a pretty cool way to sort of have your cake and eat it too. You get the appearance, but you don't sacrifice the tone, and who really cares if the maple is flamed when you're not seeing, you know, anything but the top. That being said, even just in this video, you can probably tell that the flame is pretty lackluster, at least with this finish. I mean, it's certainly flamed, but it's kind of hard to notice. It's not like very pronounced. If you've seen my Warmouth, that top is a lot more pronounced, and both this and the Warmouth are satin finishes, so it's not like it's just the finish. But yeah, it's blue. That's cool. Then we have 3 pickups. These are Strandberg OEM pickups, humbucker, single. Then we have volume and tone, and a 5-way switch, and the Strandberg Tremolo. The body is darker blue on the back. And I think that probably covers the basic specs. Anything I forgot, I'll mention as we go along. So I think the first thing that I wanted to talk about is going to be the endurneck, because that is it's arguably one of the most, if not the most, jarring thing coming from, you know, normal guitars to a Strandberg. What does this crazy neck profile feel like? If you're not familiar with the endurneck, I'm not going to waste too much time on it because it's something that's probably the first thing you'll hear about when you're looking into Strandbergs. The endurneck is, I believe it's described as an asymmetrical trapezoid, so it's got like a V shape with a flat bottom instead of a pointed bottom that a normal V would have. And then the flat bottom sort of shifts position from being closer to the base side, like where your thumb would rest, to the treble side as you move your way up the neck. And I've heard a lot of good things about it, that it's designed to keep your technique more relaxed, keep your technique, you know, more, I guess, proper in classical position, but also complement other positions, because you can have your thumb, if you're playing in classical position, your thumb would be resting underneath, like on the, you know, flat part, and then if you're playing in like blues position or whatever you want to call it, you have these diagonal parts that you can rest your thumb on. So for me, I'm sort of indifferent on it. When I first demoed a Strandberg at a Guitar Center to see what it would feel like, it wasn't like, oh, this is unplayable, or this doesn't feel like a guitar anymore. It's certainly like, oh, that's different, but it doesn't really stop me from playing. At the same time, something that maybe is not mentioned enough about it is that regardless of the actual shape of the profile, it's pretty thick. And I mean, I did know this going in, but I think for me, that's more of what takes away from it than the actual shape of it, is that it's just thick. It's thicker than the necks that I play on all my other guitars. You know, I play like an Ibanez RG with the Wizard profile. My Warmouth build also has their Wizard profile. I think did they actually straight up call it Wizard, or I forget what they call it, but it's like their thinnest profile as well. So I'm used to thin necks, and I have like average to maybe slightly small hands. So it is a little thick, but for me, I kind of like that just because it's different from my other guitars. So like I have something different there, but I think I would prefer it if it was thinner, and I don't think they make an endurneck with any different thickness. So that is definitely something you have to consider. Everybody says, and it's true, if you want an endurneck, you should absolutely try one out before it. But the thickness is probably the biggest detractor for me. As for the actual profile sort of influencing technique, I don't feel like it's really making me play any different. I don't know if that means my technique was already fine, or maybe my technique was too far gone to be corrected, but I'm not really getting that. And I've even thought about it sometimes, like, oh, am I keeping my thumb like right, you know, on the flat part when I'm doing this? Like I already know how to, you know, play classical position, because yeah, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like that big of a deal to me, but just the thickness is kind of the thing. Also, I forgot to mention, I think it's not actually just a roasted maple neck. It has like 2 stripes. I think it's like carbon fiber in it or something. I forget. Speaking of, you know, stuff to do with the neck, you have the truss rod adjustment right here, and since there's no headstock, you don't have to do anything to access your truss rod screw area place. So that's really nice. The same thing for the Warmouth is that they have it over here. I love that. In 2022, you should not have to loosen strings and stuff like that to adjust the truss rod. So that's great. I really like that. As for other stuff, before I talk more about this, the general playability, something I really didn't want to forget to mention, which is really important if you're buying one of these, particularly in this finish. So it's roasted maple, and they advertise right on the website that the roasted maple varies in color. You may have heard of the whole Kiesel drama regarding that kind of stuff. Strandberg does advertise that you can get different, you know, darkness, different shades on the roasted maple, and it's definitely true. I bought this from a seller who shows, they take a picture of the actual serial number, like the actual model that you're buying, strictly because I've seen them come in so many different shades. I've seen it where the maple is like almost like unroasted maple, and I've seen it where it's basically, it's like rosewood, like really dark. And I actually prefer the lighter look, you know. I mean, as long as it's roasted, it has the benefits of roasted maple. Then I want it to look lighter. So I look at, and this one's it's a little dark, but this is one of the lighter variants that you can get for that. So that's one really important thing that I would recommend buying this from some place where you can see what it looks like, or make sure there's a good return policy if you care about the actual appearance of the color. Because if you look at pictures of people's different models, you will see a drastic difference in the fretboard wood color. But strangely, you can also find a drastic difference, and I'll put some pictures on the screen to show you, in the top finish, in the body finish. Well, yeah, for the top, this blue. This blue, I've seen it look like a light turquoise on some of the other ones, and ranging down to like a deeper blue, which is what I wanted, which is why I chose this one, because it looks blue, like it's actually blue. But some of them just straight up look much lighter, like kind of like a turquoise color. I don't really know why the finish would vary that much, and I've seen enough pictures to convince me that it's not just like a lighting thing, that they're actually just not all the same color in this blue finish, even though they are supposedly the same, selection of options. So yeah, definitely look out for that. If you see pictures of the guitar on the website and you're like, ooh, I like the way that blue color looks, you might not get that if you just buy it without like seeing the model that you're getting. So that's very important to mention. Okay, so now we'll talk about the pickups, I guess. I don't really have an order to do this. I'm just going to look at stuff and talk about it. Now, as you guys may have heard if you've watched some of my other videos, I'm not like a super, audio head. I forget the term that exactly it is, but audiophile, that's me. I'm not a super audiophile. I'm not usually the kind of person who's like, oh yeah, this pickup, it's a little bit too this, too that, or whatever. I kind of try and get the tone out of my hands, get the tone out of the little amp or plugin that I'm playing through, and kind of shape it that way. But I don't know, I guess since I've been playing on my Warmoth with the JB and 59 and my Ibanez with the typical DiMarzio layout that they use, I've gotten a little bit more sensitive to kind of the differences in pickup tone. These Strandberg OEM pickups, they are like the most plain pickups that I've really ever paid attention to and noticed. Which is not really a good thing, but it's not a bad thing either. They just sound kind of like pickups. Like, I don't even know what to say. They just sound very bland. I feel like they don't really characterize the tone in any way, for better or worse. So yeah, they don't sound bad, but they don't really sound like anything, in my opinion. So that does make them versatile, but you don't really get any kind of unique character to them. So that's something to consider. Obviously, you can always swap out the pickups, but if you hear these pickups and you don't like the way they sound, or if you want something more from them, it might be worth it just to go for the Dala, which is, I think it's called the Dala? I forget, it's been a while. But they make a slightly more expensive version of the standard, which is a tremolo with 2 humbuckers, I believe, and their Sir pickups, which they use on the higher end Strandberg models, rather than these pickups. Some other things about the pickups. The single coils, to me, and I don't want to go too much into this because I only have one other guitar with true single coils, but they don't sound, they sound particularly low output even for single coils. I know it's a single coil, it's not supposed to be a super high output pickup like a humbucker, where it's not supposed to sing in the way that a humbucker does. But yeah, I don't know, it just feels a little bit dead whenever I'm playing through the single coils, and I've raised the neck pickup up quite a bit. I might raise it up even more, because when I switch over to do, bassier solos or like neck pickup solo lines and stuff like that, I feel like there's something missing from it. And I have a Strat that has the Fender vintage noiseless pickups. I don't really know what people's general impression of those are, but I feel like I definitely get more output when I'm playing in the neck position on that, or in any of the positions on that. So that's just my 2 cents on the single coil tones. Something else that's pretty weird and interesting to me about this guitar, which I found really annoying, but it's really not a criticism on Strandberg or this model, but for whatever reason, the way that everything is positioned, perhaps due to the scale length, perhaps due to the way that this actual bridge is positioned relative to the middle pickup, when I'm picking, my hand, it rests in a way where a lot of times I'm right above the middle pickup with my pick, and my pick bumps into the middle pickup all the time. And I've actually lowered the middle pickup quite a bit because I hardly use it anyway. So I don't care if it loses some tone, or well, I've heard that lowering it actually gives you like better sustain. I don't know, but yeah, that's something that's bothered me a lot, which is weird because on my Strat, my picking position is just not above the middle pickup on that. So I'm not quite sure how that works out, but that's something I found very annoying. But I mean, is that really a critique on this guitar? Not really, you know, plenty of guitars have a middle pickup, middle single coil. But that's something that's bothered me personally. So, yep, there's that. As for the actual controls, we have a 5-way switch. It's pretty typical for this layout. You have your bridge pickup in the first position. You have your second position, which is the middle pickup, and one of the coils of the bridge pickup. I'm not sure which coil, but you know, kind of like that telly sound, I guess. Middle pickup is just middle position is just the middle pickup. Fourth position is the 2 single coils, and fifth position is just the neck pickup single coil. You have a volume and a tone. Neither of them are push-pull. Something that other people have criticized about this guitar, which Strandberg has changed on their higher end models. I don't think they have plans to necessarily change it on the standard, but I'm not super sure, is that the knobs don't have any kind of, I think it's like knurling or like knurled, whatever they say. There's nothing to grip really on the knobs. They're just smooth satin finish, which everything on the guitar is satin finish. If I didn't already mention, the neck, the top, and even the knobs are, I mean, I don't know if they're finished, but it's like a matte, not satin, you know. It's like a matte feel to the knobs, so they're smooth and they don't have anything to grip onto. So it's a little hard to turn them, like if your hands are sweaty, and it's just a little bit more effort that it takes compared to, you know, pretty much any other knob that you'd find that has something to grip onto. So that's a little annoying, but it doesn't bother me too much. You could always swap out the knobs if you wanted to, you know, remedy that. Pretty simple stuff, right? The bridge is Strandberg's own Tremolo bridge, which is not a locking bridge, but it does have a locking nut. So it's not a double locking system, but you're locking at the nut. So the tuning stability has been great for me. I don't do much with the whammy bar. I usually just do like little like a little vibratos and little dips and stuff like that. You know, I do a dive bomb here and there, and I haven't seen any like crazy tuning issues, or actually like any tuning issues really. Nothing for bends or anything either. If you're the type who goes crazy on your whammy bar, you might want to demo one of these and really see what you can do with it, because it doesn't lock at the bridge, so you could potentially have tuning issues there. Something I love about this bridge is the action adjustment. So it functions kind of like a Floyd Rose and a Strat Trem. It has the 2 post points that you can adjust with an Allen wrench, and it gives you a nice Allen wrench too, with like a little handle on it too, like better than you get from a lot of other guitars. So you can adjust just each side of the bridge, but then you can also use either your hand or a screwdriver or whatever you want to adjust each individual saddle height. So you can adjust individual saddle heights and both heights of the bridge, which means you can really get any possible action you want on this guitar in terms of relative string height to one another, which is really great. I should also mention in terms of radius, I believe it is a 20-inch radius, which is very flat. Feels nice though. Okay, so that's the bridge. Another thing about the bridge, I've read that, I don't actually hear many people talking about this in reviews, but I've read that there are actually 2 like tension settings for the bridge based on where the bridge sort of slides into the post or onto the post. I'm not sure if I'm quite using the right terminology for that, but supposedly you can get a more sensitive like action on the tremolo arm if you sort of remove the bridge and then like kind of slide it into a different slot on the posts or whatever. I haven't done that. They advertise it as, you know, they start with like a more fine action, and if you do that, then it would be more of a severe action. So like, in other words, the second option would be, you know, higher response from, in higher pitch change by moving the arm. And coming from a background playing lots of Floyd Rose guitars, I do notice that the default setting is a lot less sensitive than a Floyd Rose. In other words, if you want to adjust the pitch a certain degree, compared to a Floyd Rose, you will have to adjust the arm more. You'll have to push it down or pull it up more than you would on a Floyd Rose. Doesn't bother me that much, but it is a little bit different there. But otherwise, it feels fine. I absolutely love how the arm goes into the cavity, or goes into the bridge. It doesn't really have the Floyd Rose situation where you have to like screw that one screw over here and then hope that the threads pair up with the threads on the arm nicely, and that it doesn't like loosen up on its own. You sort of just screw it in, and then it has a little set screw, I think they call it, over here, so you can actually adjust how tight it is. And I haven't even had to mess with that set screw. Right from the default, it's perfect for me. If you push it, it moves easily. If you don't push it, it doesn't move. Perfect in my opinion. I get triggered watching videos of people playing guitars where they do something with their whammy bar and let go and it just swings like that. That bothers the heck out of me. I hate that. Like the feel of that, because whenever that's happening, typically if you're moving the arm, you kind of get a little jiggle where it's not actually moving the bridge and just moving around in its little slot, and that is like the most uncomfortable thing for me and probably a lot of other people. But you won't get that from this. So really nice in terms of the way the arm works in that situation. Okay, so I think it's time to get back to what we're looking at with neck stuff. As for the multi-scale, the fanned frets. So as you can see, the frets sort of slant and get gradually more slanted as you get higher up here, because you have a shorter scale length on the high E than you do on the low E. This has been not much of anything in terms of issues for me, and this is what most people say, because it's not a very severe difference. And again, this is my first time playing a multi-scale guitar, first time playing a fan fret guitar. You know, every once in a while, especially when I first got it, if I wasn't looking at the fretboard, I might like accidentally shift positions to like the wrong fret if I'm also jumping strings. So it's not like nothing will ever happen from it, but for me, I really didn't find it to be that much of an issue. And this is coming from like 15 years of playing on normal scale length guitars. So switching to this, I don't really think it's a big deal. I don't really think it'll bother you. You know, you'll get used. Not only will you get used to it pretty quickly, but it's like you don't really even have to get used to it. It doesn't feel that weird at first, at least to me. I haven't had much trouble with it. So that's pretty much what I would say about that. I do like actually how, since you have a less tension on the higher strings, because you're still using, at least in my case, and most people's cases, you're still using a standard string gauge all along. So it's easier to do like bends, you know, on the higher strings, which is always nice. And yeah, so one of my biggest overall issues with this guitar that sadly I don't have an exact explanation for has been getting the setup right. So I ordered this guitar from a shop in California. They supposedly did a setup at that shop, and I got this back in January. So I don't really want to, for one thing, I'm not even 100% sure that the shop actually did set it up like they said they did. Also, it was coming from California, a warm climate, to, you know, New York in the dead of winter. So obviously a lot of things can happen. I'm not sure exactly who or what is responsible for the condition when I got the guitar. It wasn't terrible. When I took the guitar out of the box, the first thing I noticed was that the truss rod was too tight, like there was an overbow, whatever you want to call it. I'm not like an expert at setting things up, but I've done plenty of truss rod adjustments and gotten all my other guitars to be exactly like I like them. So I started loosening the truss rod, and no matter what I did with the truss rod, I was getting a lot of buzz, particularly on the low E string, which I still am, unfortunately, and just all the low strings. And it was at a point where, to get rid of the buzz, it seems like the only thing I can do is raise the action more than I would be comfortable with, because I literally, especially my Ibanez, God, I wish everyone watching this knew what my Ibanez played like, because I don't know how, but my Ibanez has like the lowest action you can imagine, and it doesn't buzz. Like, I guess if you hit the string really hard, it might buzz, but it doesn't buzz, and the action is insanely low. I have not been able to replicate, I would say almost even close to that on this guitar. And the weird thing is, this E string is already kind of higher than I would want it, but I've gotten to a compromised position, but it buzzes everywhere. And that's the weird thing to me, is that right now I have exactly what Strandberg recommends you to set your truss rod at. I have it so that there's about a credit card or a business card space when you fret the top and bottom fret. Underneath the 12th fret It's exactly what they show. Like, I literally watched a video of Ola Strandberg. I mean, I already knew this. Like, this is how you adjust your truss rod. But I've even tried other settings on the truss rod, and still I'm getting a little bit of buzz, and it happens basically everywhere on the fretboard. So usually if it was a truss rod issue, you would have the buzz in one spot because like maybe you'd have too much bow or too much overbow or hump, whatever, in your neck, and then you get buzz on the low strings because the frets are higher, you know, in the middle. Or maybe you'd have too much of an underbow, and then you'd be getting buzz like in the middle of the fretboard or in the higher frets because then you know, you have a ramp up that's catching them somewhere. That's at least how I understand it to work. You can tell me if I'm wrong about that. But no matter what I did, I couldn't really get the action super low without some buzz on the low strings. Like I said, I've gotten it to a compromised position right now, like a position that I'm okay with. I don't really know if this reflects all Strandberg models. I am not really an expert on checking fret leveling, but I would assume that it's not a fret leveling issue because that would be more significant in one spot, I would think, than like across pretty much the whole fretboard. This guitar also has a 0 fret, which is pretty cool, but that shouldn't have anything to do with it either because it's not like it only happens on the open string. So I don't really know what to say about that, but that has been probably my biggest issue with this guitar, is getting the action to a really nice low setting, which I think a lot of people who would be interested in a guitar like this want super low action for, you know, fast technical playing, modern stuff. Everybody, I mean, not all of us, but you know, you probably want low action these days, especially if you're interested in a guitar like this. And I haven't been able to get it as low as I want it. It's still pretty low, but I have other guitars that have lower action, and you certainly don't want buzz. So yeah, that has probably been my biggest issue. So other general stuff before we wrap up. One thing really positive about it, I don't think you can tell because I'm using a lapel mic right now, but a lot of people have said this as well. Like, I watched a lot of other reviews before I bought this guitar, that's why I keep saying a lot of people say this. So somehow it's just really resonant, like even when you don't plug it in, like just like playing it like acoustically or whatever, it's surprising. Like, you feel it vibrating in your hands, which a lot of my other guitars, like electric guitars at least, of course, I don't feel that. And that speaks, I think, positively to the build quality. I should mention it is a bolt-on design. Oh, and they don't give you a cover for the tremolo cavity. It doesn't really bother me, but like, you know, you're paying like, I think $1,700 is what this guitar goes for. You should probably have that, but yeah. And yeah, let me just give it a once over and see if there's anything else that I wanted to say. Oh, so I forgot to mention about the weight. I mean, it's kind of an afterthought, but this is a headless guitar, of course, and the body is also contoured, and it's, you know, kind of a small body. So it's much lighter than you'll find on, you know, any typical guitar, which I love. It's not quite as light as the chambered Strandbergs, which is most of the higher end models. I did play one in a store once, which was even lighter than this, to the point where some people describe it as like feeling like a toy. I actually like that though. I like a light guitar, you know, it makes you feel really free and you can move around with it really easily. But this one has a little bit more weight on this. I think it's just under 5 pounds, but it's still much lighter than like a typical guitar. Weirdly though, like based on how small it is, it almost feels heavy when you hold it, because I feel like it looks like it should be lighter than it is. But yeah, it's still extremely light. I think that's great. I've had more fun playing this guitar standing up with a strap than I have probably like any of my other guitars. I also love that aspect for gigging. I haven't gigged in years, but I'm in talks with a friend who might want to do some shows with me, and I feel like this guitar would be a dream to be on stage with, especially since you got the glow-in-the-dark dots. But just being able to move around freely with the light body, really easy to take places. It comes with a gig bag, which, you know, has pockets for everything you need, and it's nice and small and compact. I really love that. I think you probably love that too if you're interested in a guitar like this, just having that form factor. And yeah, I think that's about all I can say about this guitar. Guys, if you enjoyed this review, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe. I know every YouTuber says that, and for obvious reasons. Most, or not most, but like a lot of my videos get over 1,000 views, and I don't even have 200 subscribers on this channel. I don't upload here that much, so if you sub, you're not going to get like, you know, tons of your feed clogged up by my videos, so I would greatly appreciate that. And leave me a comment down below, let me know what you thought of this, and if you're interested in getting this guitar. And hope you enjoyed it, and have a good one. Bye-bye.